I've been riding gravel bikes like this one here for about 10 years now, and I bloody love them. For me, it's that blend of road bike speed and off-road capability into one bike that I can go just about everywhere and anywhere you desire. And over the years, the bikes have generally got better. And one trend right now is wide tyres. And some manufacturers are embracing the move to wide tyres and some are definitely lagging behind. But this, the brand new Vielo V+1 Race Edition, definitely points to the future, with space for 50mm wide tyres. But how on earth do you build a bike around such big tyres with seemingly no compromise in terms of performance, handling, steering, stiffness, chainstay length, toe overlap, and all that sort of stuff? Well, to find out, in this video, I'm joined by Ian Hughes, the founder of Vielo, and we'll dive into the design genesis of this new bike. And I started by asking him why he thinks wide tyres are so popular right now.
I think it has a number of benefits, to be honest. It kind of started for us probably back in about 2018 when we thought about designing our version 2 of V+1 gravel bike. And we saw rim width was going wider, kind of 38 to 40, 45 mil. And we thought, okay, we believe it was probably even going to go slightly further than that. So what's the maximum we could engineer into a gravel frame without having to go crazy, without having to move the bottom bracket width, without having to, kind of do all odd things. So we worked it out engineering wise from computer simulated designs that we could actually fit a 50mm tire in our 1x frame without having to go to drop chainstays. So the benefit from that is a number of things. You're going to be running a lot lower pressure for sure. So that's going to take a lot of the high frequency lumps and bumps out of the gravel. That's the first part. That's probably the most important part for us because we don't do any gimmicks within the frame of like flexi seat posts or that kind of thing. So the tire is probably the most important thing, even to the point of having not to go to a suspension fork as well. So we believe there's enough volume in a 50mm tire to really work, and the tire pressures were coming down much lower. And then it was down to tire manufacturers to kind of work with that. We already had mountain bike, which was very knobbly, probably quite a lot of drag. But with the gravel bike market growing, we felt there were tire manufacturers that kind of going more down that route towards gravel. So not quite so mountain bike, big knob treads. The casing of the tire as well, we knew was going to be much more supple, suited more towards gravel. So that was the thought process really, and now it's just convincing people quite a while ago that we fit 50mm tire as a standard on our gravel bike. And people are going, whoa, that's mountain bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes from mountain bike, but give it a try. You might be used to 40, 45mm, which was the trend, maybe even earlier on this year. I remember you discussing it. It was like, okay, but we believe 50s at least were the way to go. And it's convincing people or explaining to people, giving them comfort that this really works. And even if they're not sure, we'd rather they come up to our studio up in Gateshead. I'll set the bike up for you with 40, 45mm tires. You go out for as long as you want, go and ride it. Then we'll switch it out to these tires, which are our standard Continental Terra Hard Pack, 700C by 50mm. And we'll set it up and you go out for a ride. You tell me what you believe after that. Every single one comes back and says, wow, I can't believe what performance it does. There's no rolling resistance. It's more comfortable. It's great.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are today with 700 by 50mm tire.
You do have to try it to sort of get it, don't you? And when the original came out in 2018, I remember a 38 was wide back then, and tyres definitely got wider. The trend is now for wide tyres, and how wide can you go? But lots of manufacturers are still limiting tyre clearance on bikes, and customers are wanting wide tyres. But here you are, bang on trend now with a bike takes 50mm tyres. So you definitely ahead of the time a little bit there, weren't you?
No, I think we were. I think we were being quite brave, and I think kind of at that time there were other brands that were out there. You can mention quite openly, obviously Open. They were going for drop chainstay on drive side and non-drive side. That was quoted as the trend. Others were doing that as well, 3T probably, and then others were following suit. But I think what we wanted to show was that we can run a 50mm tyre without having to go to drop chainstay. So we keep the whole thing symmetrical, where it really starts at the front, where the chainring sits, that bottom bracket junction. So that's kind of where, okay, the maths work, the sums work, we can run a 1x chain set, symmetrical chain stays, still with enough room to run a brake hose or cables if we needed to inside as well. So we haven't got to pinch it. There's enough clearance, enough space, and it works.
And it did have me wondering, like, packaging a bike around such wide tyres must be really tricky. I guess 1x, is that key to unlocking the sort of wide tyre? Like you say, there's no drop stays, there's no crazy, it looks fairly normal down there, should we say?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the starting point. Because we can run the stays or the down tube completely symmetrical into the bottom bracket. Okay. So normally where you've got a cutout for the second chain ring, we've maximized that out. So that increases the BB stiffness quite considerably. That's the first starting point. And then obviously we needed to run a chain ring, which is the correct chain line, 47.5 mil. So we ended up running our own chain rings to get the chain line absolutely spot on. Again, that was kind of way back in, where did we run that? 2022.
So again, ahead of sort of the
where we started it. Well, we kind of had to do it because
there's no solution out there. You had to do it yourself.
Yeah, SRAM had a 1x, what they thought was a direct mount, but it was actually mounted to a spider. So there was too much that was going on inboard. It was actually fouling the frame. So we were kind of forced to get the correct chain line to fit our frame by producing our own chain ring first of all.
So in a way, you've been held back by some of the component manufacturers in terms of tyres, 1x with SRAM.
Yeah,
and they're sort of lagging behind, but they are catching up 1x13 now and wide tyres. But
yeah, I mean, even SRAM, you've got normal axle width, and also you've got wide width as well. So that's kind of catching up. Tyre width, we know, is kind of catching up. But again, just going back to the kind of frame design, we wanted to make the frame a performance, lightweight, kind of fast gravel. It'll also accommodate backpacking, bikepacking as well. But that's kind of where we wanted to sit it, because that whole sector of gravel bike riding now is massive. You've got really fast race performance at one side, and then all the way down to huge big bike packing.
They're really divergent to sort of camps, really.
It certainly has. It really has. I mean, we haven't put loads of mounts on the fork and that kind of thing.
But you got on the top tube and down tube. There are a few, aren't there?
Yes, there are. Yeah, I mean, there's a number of customers that have ridden them and done big bike packing tours as well. Something like the tail fin rear rack will work incredibly well. There's loads of frame bags. So, I mean, even Carlton Reid recently, he's just done 70 days riding around the UK.
70 days, wow. One of these.
All self-sufficient.
Wow, okay.
And yeah, he didn't have one mechanical other than changing the tyre that he wore out and changing the chain that he wore out.
Okay.
He had his tool keg underneath the down tube, and he didn't even open the tool keg. Okay. Not one puncher, nothing.
That's pretty amazing.
I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So just going back to the kind of frame design, we wanted to make the main frame very stiff. So that's where a lot of the performance comes out. You're not getting that kind of flex when you're throwing it into a corner. You don't get that twist in the frame, and you have to take like a second chance at kind of going around the corner. And then the rest of it is kind of engineered to provide some comfort. Tyre obviously gets a lot of the high frequency vibration out. The stays as well, these are very flat and a very slight curve shape. So that provides some more compliance and flex in that direction. And if I may just kind of go off on one very slightly, that you see so many other frame manufacturers, bike manufacturers that say, yeah, we've got these flexible stays and it's bone straight between there and there. Okay. And if you've got a straight piece of tube and a load coming from here and a load coming from here, and it's dead straight, it doesn't really know which way to bend. Okay, yeah. So really you need to provide some kind of curve here.
Encourage it to bend.
Encourage it so it knows which way to go. So we calculated this radius, this tube shape, that does actually provide that. Seat tube as well, oversized seat tube. We don't want, or we don't need to provide a small diameter seat tube to provide some flex, because that's coming from the tyre and coming from here. So the main frame, very stiff. And then even moving on to the fork, to accommodate the fork, to take 50 mil tyre as well. Really enough width at the top, plenty of tyre clearance
quite
at the top.
chunky at the top, around the crown, isn't it?
That's it. And as it tapers down towards the end as well, we had to inset the axle just to make sure that it sits in properly, and we have to go to a wider axle width for that as well. So there's lots of really subtle little pieces that kind of put the whole thing together. Well, that's the down tube going into the bottom bracket. completely symmetrical, and it's kind of an eggshell shape.
You can just see how thin the walls are, can't you, really?
So the wall is much, much thinner here, and we can make some additional layers in this direction. So it provides some compliance here, but laterally it's very, very stiff. So that's how you can kind of tune the tube shape, and that's where we start first of all, is actually the tube shape before we then start going into the types of carbon fibers. Yeah. So that's carbon fiber tow. It's made up of loads of different filaments. So the filaments are the tiny, tiny little hairs here. And to make the thread, there's a count. So if it's like something like 6K, it's 6,000 filaments in that strand of carbon fiber. So this is how it normally starts life on a big reel. And on its own, tensile strength is incredible. So you can pull on this, the tensile strength of this piece of carbon fiber tow is about 1.2 tons. So in a tensile strength, this will lift the family car up.
Wow.
But if you start compromising the direction of it and the type of carbon fiber, so you hear people talking about high modulus, medium modulus, low modulus. High modulus carbon fiber is incredibly brittle. To the point, if you start compromising the shape of this, here's what I'm going to do, is tighten a small knot. So that's in a small knot now, and as I pull from both ends, you'll see what happens.
Go on.
It's that brittle. So when you're doing frame layup, you've got to be incredibly careful the types of carbon fiber that you use and how you lay it up. And that can be laid up in a number of ways. It can be on those huge big reels put through a weaving machine where you see that weave, a very close weave, so you've got the weft and the warp running through. So that's normally used, application used in kind of flat surfaces, automotive industry, car bonnets, chassis, things that have got very nice smooth curves. And like I said, if you start compromising the curvature of that, it becomes very, very brittle. Sometimes you see it used on bike frames where it's external, more of a kind of a cosmetic look. Looks really, really nice with maybe a bit of clear coat over it, and it just kind of gives it a cosmetic finish. But what you can do with this stuff is amazing in terms of how you can lay it up. So in the factory that we run, these cotton reels run across a machine. It runs some resin through the tow, and then it's laid up on a big drum roll with paper backing in a unidirectional way. So it's a massive, massive big sheet of this tow all in one direction. It's called unidirectional. And then that's cut. And then you can start laying those sheets over one another to make it unidirectional, and you can adjust the layup and the number of layers according to the strength that you want and where you want to apply it. Then we can start looking at the number of pieces that we use in the frame and how they're actually manufactured. So once we start off with those great big sheets of unidirectional carbon fiber on paper backing, they're all cut up into jigsaw pieces and applied to various parts of the frame. So we use up to 400 pieces of a jigsaw puzzle to lay the frame up. So starting off with maybe the bottom bracket area, you'll get one of the workers that will start with the foam mold, and then they'll start laying up all the different pieces of a jigsaw puzzle to make the bottom bracket area. And that's all done on a map, all done on a worksheet, so they know the number of pieces, they know where it's laid up. When that's done, they actually weigh it to make sure they've got sufficient layers in there, they're all correct. Then it go on to the next station until the whole frame is all laid up and then put into the mold. The main frame is made all in one piece, and then the seat stay and the chain stay is made in one piece, and that's bonded together around about here, and then bonded together around about here. And that's all lined up in a jig to make sure everything's all lined up correctly. Finished off, sanded down, goes into paint, goes into QC, and then delivered. So we can calculate the strength and rigidity of the tube on the computer, and that will give you all the hot spots, the high spots of where the frame is strong. You can run the program on that, and it'll tell you, okay, you've got a bit of a weak spot there, you might need to adjust the tube shape, adjust the layup of the carbon fiber to perform where you want it to perform. Well, that's the down tube going into the bottom bracket, completely symmetrical.
So press fit, yep.
Yep, that's a really, really good point, because to get the chain line correct and the space that we had here, if you start running a screw fit bottom bracket, that means you're having to come out slightly further outboard.
Okay, yeah.
So we really needed to run a press fit bottom bracket. And then obviously customers are going, oh, okay, you've got a bit of a bad rap, press fit bottom brackets, which I got quite a while ago.
It's done badly though,
understand the reason why, because if you don't get the tolerances absolutely right, you're onto a failure. So you can imagine mass production, bikes coming out, frames coming out, and maybe this tolerance isn't quite correct. And then by the time it gets out into the market, it gets a bad rap. So if you get this tolerance absolutely right, that's the first point. And then the second point is we run a press fit screw together bottom bracket from Token. So one side comes in, the other side comes in, it's threaded in the middle in the external, and then you just screw the whole thing together and it sits as snug as a bug in a rug.
That's a good quote.
Perfect. So yeah, that's where it all starts.
And this is a race edition, which means obviously for racing, but there's no eyelets for cables. So this is a wireless only frame.
Yes, we do two versions. We do one with regular cable routing. Okay. So if you want to use mechanical, GRX mechanical 12 speed, you can kind of go down that route, or Campag Ekar or anything else that's mechanical. And then we wanted to produce a frame set with no cable ports at all, purely for wireless.
Yeah.
So there's no plugs, nothing.
Yeah.
So it's purely for wireless. So again, looking ahead to what group set manufacturers are doing, coming up more and more wireless, then we just wanted to make it look really, really clean. Our own bar stem combo, so 1.5 inch, 1.125. We didn't want to go crazy oversize. All it needs to do is just accommodate 2 brake hoses going up through the fork steerer tube and out to the stem and the bar. So you haven't got half in, half out.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, just that little detail which we kind of finesse.
But that's something you don't see from other bike manufacturers. They have a SRAM group set on their bike, but they still have the ports with a sort of rubber grommet in there. And when you're buying a 10 grand bike, it looks a bit of an oversight, really.
Well, it does, and there's still, frames or bicycle manufacturers that are producing a 1x gravel bike, but it's on a 2x frame.
Yeah.
And you've still got the plugs here for where the front mech can go on. But they're not making the frame purely for 1x. There's some brand manufacturers that have dedicated their frame to 1x in gravel. But yeah, not so many.
When you launched the bike in 2018, it had 1x wide tyres. Do you face quite a bit of sort of misunderstanding, I guess, from consumers about the bike's intentions and the lack of front mech, and compared to now, like fast forward 2024, 1x is a lot more common, a lot more popular, wide tyres, people understand it better. Do you find that consumers better educated or just understand the bike?
It's a really good point. I mean, first of all, we were a new brand.
Okay.
So,
that's an uphill battle straight away.
Consumers are going like, okay, who are you guys? These new kids on the block. We've seen this happen so many times before.
Yeah.
These kids that come in and think they're going to like blah, 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 blah. who do they think they are? And I've got very, very thick skin. I've been in the trade so many years, and I kind of expect that. So you don't fight with it, you just let it run.
Okay.
And from your brand's point of view, you just keep putting that message out. This is what we do. This is the reason why we do it. Talking with good people like yourself, explaining what we do. Riding it, getting customers riding it and getting it, and then gradually the message will come through. So I think if you're clear on what you want to achieve from the start with, and just keep that message, keep delivering it first of all, then you're off to a good start.
I mentioned earlier about the sort of the challenge of having components that allow you to do, like the chainring, you have to design your own chainring. Has that been a battle, a struggle for manufacturers to keep up with, where you have a vision for your bike, you see the benefits for 1x and wide tyres, but they're not offering the products you need?
At the time, they
have been held back by that?
Didn't, and there was some reluctance from some group set manufacturers of like, why are you doing that? You can't do that. It's not ours. You shouldn't do it.
Okay.
And again, we explained to them, well, we've engineered this frame. We're not trying to take anything away from you. We just want to provide a solution that nobody else has done yet. And then gradually that has caught up. So yeah, there is some kind of reluctance from some of the bigger component suppliers, but I don't think we kind of butt heads with them. We just explain to them this is what we want to do, and it's a logical reason behind it.
In my experience, it's often the small bike companies that really push the kind of status quo in terms of what the big manufacturers are supplying to the big bike brands, and it takes a smaller company to come along and say, we need this and you're not doing this, and to kind of make people look at something a bit differently, which you're doing here with One Bike, and have no concession to front mechs. And I guess a lot of people might have asked, can you fit front mech? But you're very clear in that focus.
Picking up on to your point there, I mean, we're here at Malvern Classic,
Yeah.
and I remember, and I'm sure you remember, back in the early mountain bike days, there were so many pioneers that were coming to the market, so many people that were working on new trends and new ideas. Some of them are still around, many of them fell to one side, but it's just that pioneering, have a go.
Yeah.
You know, if you believe in your convictions, if you truly believe what you're doing and you've got enough knowledge to do that, and experience to do that, and you're pretty clear, why not? You know, why not do it?
Yeah.
There's several things that you might fall over on the way, but you know, kind of here we are. And I'd always encourage somebody to make that move, have a go.
Okay. So let's talk more about who it's aimed at. I mean, we talk about it as a race bike. It's not really a bike packing bike, but you could go bike packing. Could you go road riding? Could it be an all road bike with slick tyres, or is it strictly a gravel bike?
Very much so. I mean, we've got a lot of customers that come to us and say, I've got some really nice road bikes, but I want something that's going to be a lot more versatile.
Yeah.
So we'll sit down with them and say, okay, I think this package will work incredibly well. Let's start you off with this package, wheel tyre combination first of all. You go out and ride it, and then if you want to ride with your road bike buddies through the winter maybe, then you can either change the tyres on these wheels, or you might even want to invest in another wheel set with some, let's say 35 or 40 mil semi-slick tyres. You can ride with your road bike buddies, still with a 35, 40 mil tyre, not get dropped, have a lot of comfort, and have a ton of fun as well.
I'd be surprised how many viewers ask me about riding a road bike wheel set and tyre on a gravel bike, and that I never really expected that to be a trend 5-10 years ago, using a gravel bike for a road bike.
Yep.
I guess that just shows how poorly maintained our roads are. People see the benefits of wide tyres, and road bikes, race bikes, don't they fit wide tyres, do they? And they want a 35 or a wider
Yeah, I mean,
for a road bike.
looking at it, you know, even economically, the road surfaces ain't going to get any better anytime soon. They're really, really not.
Yeah.
It's going to be there for a long time before all those potholes are
Filled in.
and even the road surfaces are tidied up, and we get some reasonable road surfaces. So that ain't going to get any. And realistically, if you're still running what I call old school 25 and 28 mil tyre, 100 psi, you just get shaken to bits. You just get blasted, and that fatigue thing. So it's this kind of riding further, faster, longer, more comfortable, is a lot more enjoyable. I remember a couple of years ago, a customer lived locally to us. He came to us and was interested in one of these bikes. And he had a semi-retired, fairly well off. He loved his road cycling. He had a really, really nice Colnago, a really, really nice Pinarello. And I think he had a custom frame. Oh, that's right, he had an S-Works as well.
Okay.
So that was his quiver. And he was out on those all the time. He said, I just want, something to be, I want to do some gravel. I want to go riding some of the paths, so disused railway lines where we live as well, and maybe go over to the Lake District. So I set it all up for him, and I said, I'll have a quiet bet with you. I bet you ride this bike more than you do your others. And he just laughed. He said, yeah, no, I love my Pinarello. I love my car. I'm never, ever getting rid of those, ever. He came back and had his bike serviced about 9 months later, and he bought a bottle of wine in. And he said, Ian, you were right. I spend more time riding this. I've sold my Pinarello, I've sold my Colnago, I've sold my S-Works, I've got a happy wife, and I ride one bike.
Fantastic story. And not just comfort, is it? It's like that security you get from riding big tyres on crappy road surface as well, isn't it? When you're descending and it's like slippery and greasy.
And the whole confidence thing as well, because I think, there's a lot of customers that I talk to as well, and you probably, come to the channel, that are kind of, their confidence is like really, really not sure. Coming down a fast descent with skinny road tyres of like, are they going to make it? Is it going to, how's it going to handle? Something like this, it's going to soak it up. It's just going to give you so much more confidence.
And even these tyres, I mean, they're knobby tyres, but very slick down the middle. So imagine that rolling resistance would be pretty low on there.
It is very much so. I mean, even to that point, Jens, our engineer who works out of Chemnitz University, he built a rolling treadmill.
Okay.
So we can actually simulate various road conditions from smooth tarmac, gravel, lumps and bumps. He's got various sensors on there, on the machine, various sensors on the bike as well. And we can do all sorts of tests, to test rolling resistance, to test vibration, all that kind of thing. And without doubt, this tyre was the one that came out the best for gravel, the Continental Terra Hard Pack.
Okay.
And then for road, the GP5000 700 by 32
Okay.
was the best road tyre out of all of them for rolling resistance, and weight and performance and everything.
Like you said earlier, it's suspension, isn't it? Like,
It is. It really is. And we'd spend a ton of time testing all the tyres as well.
Yeah.
If we're going to recommend a tyre to go with our bike, this is what we recommend. If the customer wants something else, for sure, we'll fit it. And that whole tyre type, size, style is just growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. You know, it really, really is. From what was mountain bike, now kind of gravel, then kind of road plus, and then road. So there's so many options.
And it seems like, because mountain bikers understand the benefits of suspension, both from actual suspension and big tyres, in terms of if you're smoother, you're faster, but roadies obviously were used to 23, 25s and smooth surfaces. These wheels and tyres and these bikes open their eyes to the benefits of suspension and wide tyres. Like say, low pressures give more suspension, don't they?
Well, they do. I mean, a while ago, probably a couple of years ago, customers are coming back and saying, "Oh, I'd like to fit a suspension fork." Well, is the suspension fork friendly? So, well, it's not suspension fork friendly. The geometry won't take a suspension fork. And to be honest, there's not any real reason, because the tyre is going to take up that vibration and soak that up, you know, virtually to the travel that you'd have on a gravel suspension fork. And then you've got all the extra weight of a gravel suspension fork as well. And it's like, not much a need to do it from our side.
Okay.
But if a customer genuinely wants it, then okay, try it.
I guess they came out probably when tyres weren't as wide as they are now. Now you've got wide tyres.
Yes.
Arguably less benefit for them. What about, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, even down to the route now, where rim width for gravel is going wider and wider. The new 303S Explorer. That's huge. That's massive. You know, that really, really is. I think that's going to take a little while to roll out into the market, literally, excuse the pun. But there's certain tyres which are recommended because it's hookless from Zipp, from a security point of view. So I think at the test camps they were running 40, 45 mil, and there's some now which they've approved for 50 mil. So it'll be interesting to see how that all rolls out. From my perspective, I can understand the aero gains from having a 40, 45 mil tyre on that width of rim, because it's a perfect shape.
Yes.
And if you're riding Unbound or some of the beautiful trails in Kansas, where the gravel trails are billiard table smooth, tiny, tiny little pebbles, and you're punting along at a pro level, I can understand those aero gains. But I think most of the time, most customers will be looking to ride usual gravel routes. It's not that specific. So I think it'd be interesting to see what tyres that Zipp recommends wider for that 303S Explorer wheel.
Yeah, I'd say tyres are getting wider, but rims are getting wider as well. And in that new Explorer is 32 internally, I think it is, which is like wider than the mountain bike rim.
Yeah, and to produce
that sort of trickle over from mountain bikes now as well, and the rim width.
To produce that width, you've also got to have the depth as well. So the spokes actually line up properly, and you've got to have much, much deeper. And it's like, okay, how deep do you want to go for a gravel wheel? I think it's going to take a little while for that to settle in, but you know, why not?
And this bike, I mean, amazing paint job. Like I say, I love a fade as well. It's very bold, should we say. There's no like mad logos on the down tube, very understated as well. That's clearly a deliberate move in terms of how it looks visually. Yeah,
I think from day one we just wanted to make the brand look clean, not follow the corporate, having your name on the down tube splattered all over the place, having buzzwords, acronyms of trick stuff. Well, that's not what we do. And then the color palette was like, okay, we don't do black. Let's do something different.
Yeah.
So Antonio, who looks after all of our visual stuff, came up with a number of color options. We call it a color dance. So he'll do some layouts, graphic layouts. We'll put them up on a mood board, and some of them will be like, wow, that's so out there, that's so in your face. It's like, that one's pretty safe, okay. And then we'll have others that will come, and we'll keep looking at it and keep coming back to it. And when we first saw this one, it was like, oh, that's so wild. Could you really go with this color?
Okay, yeah.
Could you really do it? And we kept looking at it and thought, got to do it. It's got to have it. And that's our most popular frame, most popular color.
I think it's fantastic. It's sort of like both bold but classy at the same time.
Yeah.
Possible.
Yeah.
It's not like in your face, but it's like stylish.
No, we're on the next color dance. We just got that mood board up at the moment.
Okay.
We wanted to run kind of a satin color for the gravel bikes.
Okay, yeah.
And a gloss for the road bikes.
Okay, yeah.
Not matte, because we know trying to clean matte paint, especially on a gravel bike, not the easiest, but satin's pretty easy. And there's plenty of products out there to help clean satin and coat it. If anybody wants, we also do an Invisiframe kit as well, in both gloss or satin. So if somebody does want protection, we can offer that as well.
Can you customize a build to your?
You can totally customize. We do a standard build from let's say SRAM Rival, SRAM Force, SRAM Red.
Okay.
And then if our customers want to upgrade wheel sets, if they want to change the tires, they can do that. So there's plenty of options to final detail customization.
Okay.
And I think probably the most important thing, because we're consumer direct, is when we deliver the bike, we want to make sure it fits them like a tailor-made suit.
Okay.
Absolutely perfectly. So you don't get a standard size medium with a 42 bar, 100 stem, 30 mil stack, 172.5 cranks, and then when you deliver it to the customer, they've got to start changing stuff around. We insist wherever we deliver the bike to, anywhere around the world, we either take the measurements from the customer's current bike, if they're comfortable with it, or their current bike fit.
Okay.
And several times we've got a customer's bike fit, we set the bike up for them, and they said, oh yeah, that bike fit was about 6 years old. So, okay, probably worth doing another one.
Might have changed a bit since then.
Might have changed just a little bit. So we make sure that the stack, the stem length, the bar width, the crank length, everything fits them perfectly. So when we deliver it, that's it. No compromise.
Amazing.
Fits them like a tailor-made suit.
Well, it should be, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just that attention to detail, really.
Okay.
It doesn't take much more to do that. It's just a bit more communication with the customer. But
Okay. And it's quite nice to have that dialogue with the consumer, I guess, as well. You know what sort of person they are, what they're using their bike for, and you can really tailor the bike for their purposes, can't you?
Yes. Even on our website, we've got like a little chat button, and that doesn't get through to an AI bot. It's not like a question and answer thing. It gets through to two people. It's either Trevor or me.
Oh, right, okay,
so if my
very hands-on
phone
then.
pings, that's it. And normally Trevor and I fight for that catch up. And then the conversation starts, and then the customer, wherever they are, like you're speaking with the founder or the owner or the co-owner of the business, and we just start that conversation.
We've been talking about trends and wide tyres. What do you see on your radar in terms of the bike design going forward, or just more generally in the gravel space, given you were sort of a pioneer with this bike?
Yeah,
2018?
it's kind of difficult to see what route is going. I probably see more integration.
Okay, like the internal routing and...
Yeah, more internal routing. Then you've probably got the likes of Classified that are coming to the market with their internal gear hub system.
Yep.
I see that. We see more and more people discussing that.
Okay.
Another brand we saw at Eurobike as well, Tektro TRP, that are coming with a wireless group set.
Yeah.
And that's kind of integrated in with Classified. So they're stating it as a 1x16 group set.
Okay.
So I think that's probably where the direction's going to go. I don't see too many other trends yet coming, anything like crazy innovation yet.
I think like Classified sort of reaffirm your focus and passion for one bike, really, isn't it? Making one bike with 2-speed hub, making it even wider range.
Yeah, I think it's keeping it simple, keeping it clean, keeping it honest, and not industry marketing BS that are coming up with some crazy gimmicks and stuff like that. There's brands that have got enough marketing budget to kind of throw at it and kind of do that, but I think consumers are kind of seeing through that now as well. They're getting wise to it.
Okay.